Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. There's been no shortage of news out there recently when it comes to Marvel Legends announcements, reveals and leaks. No more so than on Friday the 6th of December where we had the Marvel Legends live stream where Hasbro announced a lot of the upcoming releases for 2025. Really just a bit of a tease because of course there'll be a great many more items throughout the year, but these are the ones we can expect early on, and this is pretty exciting stuff. So as ever, I thought I'd share my thoughts with you on some of these announcements, and I'm going over to toyark.com, a fantastic site to keep up to date with the recent toy news that's out there in the world. Big shout out to toyark.com, and let's take a look at some of these images and some of the announcements. First off, we have a slightly unusual one for me in that we have the Francine Fry version of Electro. Gotta be honest, I'm not familiar with this version of the character at all. Looks to be a very traditional style Electro costume, obviously, very different form. Not one I'm familiar with, so a bit difficult for me to comment on in terms of how accurate or how exciting this is. It's not particularly exciting to me, and it's probably going to be an easy pass, I've got to be completely honest. One thing I do like about it, though, are these Electro effects. I think this looks absolutely fantastic. This looks to be absolutely brand new. Don't recall ever seeing this before, and they look to be really powerful. They look to have done a really nice job with these effects. And I've got to be honest, that's kind of tempting, even though I've no real interest in this character. And you can see there just how they spread out from the body. That is pretty impressive. And in terms of the packaging, they're putting in that sort of retro style carded packaging that we've seen on some of the more recent Spider-Man figures, which is quite attractive. I really like the colorization of this, the purples and the blues, etc. So this looks fairly attractive. As I said, not one for me to be honest, but I do think they've done a really nice job with this Electro effect. Okay, next up we have Spider-Boy, I think. Again, this is obviously from the Spider-Verse, not something I'm really up to date on, all these various alternate universe versions of Spider-Man. This looks pretty horrendous with those teeth. I've got to say, this looks pretty nightmarish. Not sure if he's a hero or villain, to be honest. It doesn't look great. Again, another easy pass for me, I'm afraid, because I'm not really familiar with this character. I don't really like the look of this costume either, I've got to be honest. This looks a bit weird, especially with those like sort of trainers he's got there. But credit where credit is due. Obviously, those trainers look to be brand new tooling. I don't think we've ever seen them on any other Spider-Man figure before, or any other Marvel Legends figure for that matter. So I always appreciate new tooling, and I think that looks pretty cool. Also worth pointing out, he's got two heads, which is very cool. He's obviously got a mouthless version, and he's got one with that horrific mouth. The eyes on both are sculpted in. That I do appreciate, and I think the gold paint they've used there is absolutely fantastic, so good job there. He also comes with a backpack as well, which is very nicely painted by the looks of it, and that obviously slots into his back, I'm guessing through a peg hole there on his back, which looks pretty cool. So he does come with some interesting bits and pieces, although I do want to comment on the fact that a lot of the detailing on the costume is painted in, it's not actually sculpted in. That's always disappointing. So this figure seems to be one of highs and lows for me from a production point of view. As I said, I do really like those eyes, though. I think they've done a good job of that, and it's great that we're getting two head sculpts. As I said, not one for me, but nevertheless I am pleased to see some of the detail. And if we look closer there, we can see he's obviously got that separate piece there that actually plugs into his back, some kind of backpack. That's quite cool. Looks like it's quite nicely sculpted, obviously a unique piece, and it looks like it's produced in the base mold plastic there rather than being painted on. But we can see some paint apps there on the red dots on the back, which is kind of cool. So it looks like a mixed bag. This one kind of interesting. As I said, not one for me. Next up, we have the Spider-Man Unlimited Spider-Man. This is kind of cool, I gotta say. For anyone who isn't familiar with this version of Spider-Man, this is actually not part of the Spider-Verse. This is taken from the animated series. For those who are aware, we had a Spider-Man animated series that ran for about 5 seasons in the 90s. I love that cartoon. That was my introduction to Marvel Comics, and I absolutely adore that series. This followed on immediately afterwards. So this came towards the end of the 90s, if I remember, and it was kind of like a spiritual sequel. It wasn't directly connected to the animated series, but it was kind of the same art style, a little bit more updated, some of the same voice actors and things, and you know, it had a lot that was linked, I suppose, but it was very much its own thing. Now, it only ran for 1 season, and it only had 13 episodes, I think, but obviously Spider-Man had a brand new costume, and it was kind of an interesting premise. It didn't really work for me. It was a little bit out there. In a way, I suppose it was kind of similar to Batman Batman Beyond, in that it was a quantum leap forward in terms of the look and design and feel. It was more futuristic in feel. I think, if I remember correctly, Spider-Man was either sent into an alternate dimension or he's out in space somewhere or something. It was kind of weird. It didn't really work for Spider-Man, but I could see what they were trying to do there. Nevertheless, I do think it's really cool that he's finally got an action figure, because I don't think we've ever had, certainly not had one in the Marvel Legends line before, and I don't know whether he had a toy line at the time, because it was so short-lived. I don't think they ever produced any figures from this. So this might be the first time we've ever seen a Spider-Man Unlimited figure, which is kind of cool. And I gotta be honest, there's a part of me that's very tempted, even though I'm not really fussed on the costume or the series. There's something kind of cool and niche about this that is fairly attractive to me. And if we take a closer look here, we can see, which is very nice, actually a lot of these elements are sculpted in. Some of these spider elements and these sort of like veiny elements are actually separate pieces or sculpted in. We can see that looks like a separate piece there that's wrapped around his wrist. That if that's stuck in through a peg hole, that could work really well. If it's just loose, then I can imagine it sliding up and down and being a bit of a pain. But this looks like it's sculpted in. The detailing on the spider emblem on the chest there and around the arms, that all looks sculpted in and really nicely painted. So there's looks like there's an awful lot of retooling going on here, which is kind of cool. And I think that web cape, I don't think we've had that before. Even though it's got echoes of Spider-Man 2099, I think this is a new piece. I don't recall seeing this before. So there's a lot going on here that's brand new, which is pretty cool. And of course, it's got the retro card package in there as well, which is pretty fantastic. I absolutely love this, as I'm sure you're already well aware if you've seen any of my other Spider-Man retro wave videos. Okay, next up is one I'm really, really excited by. This is Kane. Absolutely fantastic. This was a major nemesis for Spider-Man during the 90s, during that Clone Saga. The Clone Saga was the point at which I jumped on to reading Spider-Man comics, so it has a special place in my heart, even though it's not particularly well loved in hindsight. But I remember Kane being one of the first big villains, really, an original villain, which is kind of cool. And there's a lot of mystery around who this character was, and I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't read those and is planning to. But interesting, and a very cool design, and he was very, very menacing in the comic books. Really pleased that we finally get one, and he looks absolutely fantastic, I've got to say. Again, I love the retro card. It's fantastic to see an animated series style image here of Kane. Of course, he never made an appearance in the animated series, but this looks absolutely fantastic. I cannot wait to get this guy. This is one of my top figures for Spider-Man. This is absolutely brilliant. Again, looking at the detail here, it looks like all this is sculpted in and then painted, which is absolutely gorgeous. I think this is fantastic. I really love that the cape is obviously all tattered and it's sculpted in again. Perfect. Brand new tool in there. Looks absolutely brilliant. I don't know if there's much here that actually isn't original, which is really cool. This looks like a brand new retool all around, really. Almost every element with the exception of maybe the feet. Possibly the hands. Otherwise, everything else looks to be new. This is glorious. This looks really, really good. My only criticism based on this photo would be the hair. The hair looks good, looks really nicely sculpted, but it does look like we're seeing the usual lack of paint apps that I would like to see. So there's no wash running through this to bring out some of the detail. And just how good would this look if it actually had a little bit of a wash running through it to bring out some of that texture. But otherwise, sculpting wise and the paint that we do see on the body, this looks absolutely glorious. Yep, I absolutely can't wait to get my hands on this. This looks really, really cool. I think they've done a fantastic job from these images. Okay, next up we have Agent Venom, and it feels odd to say this, but I don't think we've had an Agent Venom in the Marvel Legends line. We've definitely had it. We've definitely had him in the Marvel Select line. I know that much. Maybe we have had a Marvel Legends, apologies, maybe it was an exclusive or hard to get hold of one, but I don't own it anyway. So I'm not sure if this is a retooling, a re-release, or complete original. It feels a little bit past its time, to be honest. Like 10 years ago was the moment when Flash Thompson Venom was a big deal. A lot has happened since that time. I've got to be honest, I never really bought into this version of Venom, but it is distinct. It is very different. I think it's cool, and for those who, obviously, missed out on this or have never had an Agent Venom before, this is probably going to cheer a lot of people up. I do think it's quite interesting. Again, he's on one of those retro style cards. Pretty cool in terms of the accessories it comes with. That's the thing that really jumps out to me. Obviously having alternate head there, Flash head and the Agent Venom head, and then a couple of these weapons. Pretty sure we've seen both of these weapons before. They have just been recycled, I think. But the actual tooling on the costume, as I said, I can't remember whether we've had one before or not. So I'm not sure how much of this is original, but I don't recall seeing one. Actually, I'm desperately searching the old grey matter. I can't remember us having one previously in the Marvel Legends line. In which case, all of this is pretty much new, and it looks pretty cool. The usual niggles apply here. That I'm looking at this figure and I'm saying, yeah, it looks like it's just kind of produced in the base plastic. Wouldn't it be great if there was a little bit of a wash running over these boots in particular, where we see these like the armor plated bits and pieces here on the gauntlets, the shoulders, and on the shin pads there. I think, you know, a little bit of a wash would really draw out a lot of texture. Otherwise, you know, the white is really nicely applied. It looks as if that's just painted on. I don't think that's sculpted in. It's hard to tell. Possibly the eyes, they look like they're sculpted. Not sure about what's going on here, though. That looks like it's just painted around the actual plastic that's there. It doesn't look like the spider design has actually been sculpted in. That is a very cool head sculpt though of Flash. I've got to say, look at the detail on the eyes there, the eyebrows and the lips. I really like the paint apps they've applied there. Why they haven't gone the whole hog and actually just put a wash in his hair, it's desperately crying out for it. You know, and it would really complement the detailing that we're seeing on the face here, because that looks really, really good. Yeah, and I have to say, this is a pretty good looking figure all in all. I think this is actually, you know, pretty cool. It said it's not a character I'm mad about, but I kind of am tempted to pick this one up because it does look like a really nice figure. Okay, the next one for me, this is one of my top figures that I really, really wanted. Ever since they started doing the animated series line, I was really, really looking forward to getting hold of a chameleon. This looks absolutely fantastic. Obviously, this version of the character, this costume, is unique to the animated series. They've replicated it beautifully here. I think they've done an absolutely fantastic job. Again, it looks like there's an awful lot of new bits and pieces here, particularly the sash on the belt there. Yeah, obviously we're getting this J. Jonah Jameson mask, which is kind of cool. It also looks like he's coming with a couple of weapons as well. There's similar weapons to what Venom's coming with, actually. Not sure that's really strictly necessary, but nevertheless, pretty cool. I think this is great. I'm really pleased. In a way, I wish we'd had some alternate heads, like Nick Fury head or something like that would have been kind of cool, since it is, of course, the chameleon. But nevertheless, I think done a pretty nice job of this. The colouring looks to be pretty much spot on from how I remember it in the comic books, and as I said, this is one that's long overdue for me. One thing I do find interesting about this release is that he's coming single carded, which makes me wonder whether maybe they're done with the double sets, the twin packs where they come in that VHS sort of style packaging. I've really enjoyed collecting them, and this year we've had about 3, but obviously they've opted to just go with a single release here. Now, we've had this before. We had Kraven the Hunter released exactly like this, and that was great. I think we also had the Scorpion in this as a single carded release like this as well. This works for me, to be honest. I love this. Sometimes the issue with the twin packs is that you're kind of getting a figure that you've already got, or maybe isn't that relevant. There's been a couple of issues there. I hope we still continue with the twin sets. You know, I still really want to get some of the other characters in there. So there's the Punisher, for example, and there's a number of other like civilian characters that would be kind of cool on a twin set. So I'm hoping that they do continue with that, but nevertheless, this is very welcome news. I'm really glad we're getting the chameleon in here. I think this is absolutely tremendous, and as I said, one that I long wanted. So I'm really pleased we're going to get him. This is really good news, and I think they've done a pretty nice job with him. Looks like we're lacking the paint apps as ever. You know, the washes running over the figure, which, you know, would help. You know, it's interesting. You know, there's a couple of different options they had here when it comes to paint apps. They could have gone for cell shading. Clearly, they're steering away from that increasingly. They're not really doing as much of that anymore with their animated series, which is a shame because I actually do like it, although sometimes they can go a little bit overkill. If you want to see an example of that, then check out their Daredevil that came in one of those twin sets this year. That was a good example where they just applied maybe a little bit too much when it came to cell shading. Okay, moving on now to some of the X-Men reveals, and it looks like next year's going to be a good year for X-Men figures as well. First up, we have Charles Xavier. This is from his Savage Land outfit. This is pretty cool, I've got to say. This is one I'm very tempted by. It's hard to make Xavier figures quite exciting. We did get one this year, the armored version, which is kind of cool, and now we're getting one from his visit in the Savage Land. For me, this steps straight out of the X-Men animated series, which I absolutely loved from the 90s, so I definitely want to get hold of this figure. I think it's really cool. They've caught the detailing really nicely. Again, it looks like there's a lack of paint apps here. A lot of this is recycled. I don't know if anything is new or original. Even the head sculpt looks to have been reused and retooled here, which is interesting. And again, we're missing a lot when it comes to the paint washes. Obviously, a little bit of a wash run over that costume, particularly the torso, would have helped here. The other thing I'm noticing is the kneecaps, and I'm guessing the elbows will be the same. That difference in colorization is always a little bit of a challenge and does kind of stick out. I'm really noticing it here in this kneecap. It looks all right there, but here it really jumps out to me, and I suspect looking at that we'll have the same issue there as well. But yeah, and a little bit of a wash over this would really help draw this out, make this look a bit more attractive, because it is quite a plain figure, I suppose. It's not the most exciting figure in the world, to be honest, but for me it's kind of cool. I really do like the idea of seeing Charles Xavier in this particular Savage Land outfit. I think it's kind of cool. It's cool that it comes with the Cerebro helmet as well, and it looks as if this is a Target exclusive, which means it might be a little bit tricky to pick up in the UK. But nevertheless, this looks like a nice figure, one I'm actually keen to add to my collection, and it is really nice that it's on this card. I love this. I love this retro packaging, again, going all the way back to the Toy Biz years of the 90s. It's just bright and colourful, and I love having it on display. So for me, this works an absolute treat. I'm looking forward to getting this one. Okay, we're not quite done with Spider-Man yet, because we have a Walmart exclusive as well. This is from the 70s series / TV movies that they did. Kind of interesting, bit niche. A couple of years ago, we did get the Japanese Spider-Man, and clearly they're following up here with the other media versions of Spider-Man from way back when. Yeah, definitely not my favourite version of Spidey. Kind of cool, kind of niche. Probably not one for me, but it does look like they've done a pretty good job actually when it comes to the likeness. Obviously, this looks like a brand new head sculpt. We can see the eyes are very unique and specific, and they look to have been sculpted in, which is great. He's got the web shooters there, look like to be a separate plastic piece, as is the belt around the waist. Looks pretty good. Yeah, definitely kind of unusual, very different. Probably going to pass on this, I've got to be honest. But there is a part of me that's kind of tempted by it, in all truth, just because it's so different and so a bit wacky, I suppose. But kind of cool, I've got to say. And anyone who has obviously affection for those TV movies, then you might want to pick this up. Very unexpected, very left field. One thing I will comment on is that obviously his spider emblem there has been, although unique, which is cool, it has just been painted on there, which is a little bit disappointing. But hey. But very cool. Spider-Man 77. That's not one I ever expected to see. Then we have a Spider-Man No Way Home version of the Lizard, and this looks pretty cool. What would ordinarily be a builder figure, obviously is coming as one figure here, which looks pretty decent. As we can see, we've had a number of different releases across the years, including Doc Ock and Green Goblin from the film, so it's great that we're going to be able to round out this collection with a Lizard as well. And he looks to be bigger than your standard 6 inches, which is great. He's probably going to stand at about 7 inches, I suspect. But he looks pretty cool. Obviously, a deluxe figure there. Looks like they've done a nice job. Obviously, all of this is unique sculpting, which is fantastic. And there's some nice paint taps going on here. We're actually seeing gradients, we're seeing different washes, some shading. This looks really good. This looks like a really fantastic effort, I have to say. This is the kind of thing I would like to see. And it looks as if this will be an Amazon exclusive, so hopefully a bit easier to pick up outside of the US than some of those other releases. And of course, he seems to have alternate heads as well. And again, if you look at the paint taps on the eyes there, a lot of detail gone into this figure. So I have to say, this looks really striking, actually. I think they've done a good job of it. And there he is in his packaging there, slightly different to what we usually get. It's in more of the box design, which is pretty robust. And I do like this new box approach they've taken recently. The packaging feels a lot more solid and stronger, which is great. And they look nice and compact as well. So I think this looks pretty cool. Clearly, this is coming towards the end of this month on Amazon. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. Okay, so returning to the X-Men, we have some other reveals. We have Cortez. Quite exciting again. For anyone who grew up in the 90s, like myself, reading X-Men comics, then you'll be very familiar with this character. And I've got to say, yeah, for me, this is one I'm definitely going to be picking up. Pretty cool. A lot of it seems to have been recycled from other figures. Shame that V is just painted in, but at least we get a new piece here in terms of the shoulder pads. I don't think we've ever seen this in any other figures, so this is new. And of course, the head sculpt is brand new, as well as the arm gauntlets there. Now, the boots look a little bit thicker than we've seen on other figures, so I'm not sure if we've had that before. That actually might be new, but I'm pretty sure a lot of the other bits and pieces are just recycled. But nevertheless, this looks pretty cool. I think they've done a good job with this character. Now, he does seem to have the plastic cape. I'm not keen on that. I'd rather this was cloth. Yeah, this means it's going to be fairly formless in the sense that you're not going to be able to really pose it or do anything with it. It's going to be a bit of a barrier, I think, when it comes to articulation, which I'm not keen on. And also, they tend to just leave this without any paint apps. Most of the figure, again, not much going on in the way of shading or washes, which is a shame. Obviously, really needs it on those gauntlets, doesn't it? Really, we need to see a little bit of paint on here to draw this detail out. Likewise on the shoulder pads, just to wash over that, just to make it, come to life, show up the detail, because it looks like it's nicely sculpted. We're just not really showing it off with the paint, which is a shame. But a very cool blast effect here that he's got. This looks new. I don't recall seeing this before. This looks really good, actually. I like this look. And likewise, if we look at the head sculpt there, obviously he's got those bits and pieces around his head, which look really good. They're sculpted in, of course. Quite a nice, mean expression on his face there. So this looks pretty cool. I've got to say, this is one I'm looking forward to picking up. And I'm not sure if they demoed his packaging. Doesn't look like it, but what we can see is we have the next Age of Apocalypse figure, which is Gambit. And it's been a while since we had an Age of Apocalypse wave. We had 2 waves previously, and one of the characters we hadn't had yet was Gambit, so very cool that we're going to be able to add him into the mix as well and complete our collection, which is pretty cool. Again, a lot of new bits and pieces here, new sculpting here on the boots, the cape, obviously, again, a shame that it's one hard plastic piece, but there's an awful lot going on here. If we look at the gauntlets and on the arms, that looks to be brand new tooling, brand new head sculpt as well. And I'm just going to go back a moment so we can take a closer look. And likewise the belt. Yeah, there's a lot going on here that's brand new. Again, usual complaint, not a lot when it comes to paint washes, which is a shame, but there is a lot of new elements here, which is pretty cool. So I'm really keen to add this version of Gambit to my collection. Okay, next up we have a Nightcrawler variant, and this is an X-Force Nightcrawler. Now, I've got to be honest, I'm not really familiar with this version of Nightcrawler. I don't recall seeing this costume before. Clearly, it's when he's part of X-Force. I do really like this new head sculpt, though. This is different to what we've had previously. We've had this sword before. We've had basically this figure before. It's just painted differently, but this head sculpt is new, and we can see a closer look. I do really like the red sort of paint that he's got above his eye and under his eye there. That looks fantastic. Now, I'm not sure if that's meant to be a scar, whether that's deliberately painted on, but this looks really, really good. I think they've done a nice job with this. And it looks like we're getting 2 versions of the head sculpt as well, because it looks like we've got this open-mouthed head as well, which is brilliant. So, I've got to be honest, we haven't had an awful lot of Nightcrawlers in my collection. I can't say that I'm dripping in variants. So, for me, this one's quite attractive, and I think, yeah, you know what? I could go for this. I could definitely go for this. And I think I might just have to, because there's a pretty cool builder figure as well. Then we have, at last, another Generation X character, so Husk this time around. Now, we've had a handful to date. I think we've had 2, possibly 3 characters. We definitely got Monet, St. Croix last year or the year before, and I think we got Husk. No, it was Chamber, and now we're getting Husk, which is pretty cool. Now, this is kind of an interesting figure. For the most part, this looks to be pretty much a recycled body, torso, bits and pieces that we saw on the Monet figure. It looks to be pretty much identical, but what's different, of course, is the head sculpt. And it looks like we're getting 2 heads. We're getting one with the normal face, with the normal hair, flat hair, and then we're getting this wild sort of skin peeling version. And the ability to peel off some skin, kind of interesting, a bit creepy, bit weird, but that is part of the power. But they've done a really good job, I have to say. Like where they're doing the paint apps here around this face, where we can see the silver underneath. That's very cool, and it does look really, vivid and impactful. Like you've captured a moment here. They've done a good job with this, got to say. Now, I'm not sure if it's one I particularly want, but I do think they've done a nice job of it. And taking a closer look there where you can see the swappable heads, yeah, I do think that's a bit different, a bit unusual, and quite interesting. As I said, that bit of skin there, bit grim, and not really something I think I've wanted to see in enemy action figures. But this is definitely unique and different and kind of cool. And then, yeah, look at that. That looks really impressive the way they've done that. That's quite creepy, but cool. Then we have yet another Wolverine variant. In a year where we've had quite a few, they thought they'd sneak one more in right at the end there. Of course, it has been the 50th anniversary of Wolverine, so I suppose I've had a little bit of license to do that this year. But this time, it is the Ultimate Wolverine from the Ultimate Universe, of course. Now, we have had this figure once before, well, this costume once before in the line. This is only the second time we've ever had this Marvel Legends treatment of the character. I never got the original one. It always seemed a little bit too gangly. It didn't really work for me in all truth, but I do think it's definitely worth a revisit. It's an interesting costume and an interesting look. I think the head sculpt looks to be too generic, too Wolverine as we know him from the 616 universe, whereas the Ultimate X-Men tends to look a little bit younger depending on who was drawing him, but certainly when Adam Kubert was drawing him, he had more of a youthful look to him than he does here. So I'm not sure how accurate this is. Likewise, the body type, again, it feels too much more 616 than it does Ultimate X-Men specific. That said, it is a very nice sculpt. The costume itself looks to be nicely painted, although all the detail is essentially painted on. There's nothing really unique sculpted into this figure, and it feels like we've recycled an awful lot of parts here on this Wolverine. The other thing I think is a challenge with the Ultimate X-Men Wolverine is that he kind of stands alone, really, and I feel like you need to have other Ultimate X-Men characters to surround him. So in their Ultimate X-Men outfits, so Cyclops, Jean Grey, Gambit, whoever it might be. Otherwise, he feels a little bit lonely and a little bit out of place, and it's kind of an oddity in the collection. Now, maybe there's plans to do those Ultimate X-Men figures further down the road, who knows, maybe this sells well, that's what we'll get. But at the moment, this seems like a little bit of an outlier. But as I said, given that we've had a 50th anniversary celebration with all these different outfits, it seems perfectly appropriate to explore this as well. However, I think I would have been more excited if we'd had a Grant Morrison new X-Men Wolverine, where he has the leather jacket and things, because that's one I don't think we've had in the Marvel Legends line, or at least not for a very long time. And that would have been more exciting to me than this. That being said, it's still kind of cool, it's very unique, and you know, I'm on the fence whether I'll bother to pick this one up, but to be honest, given that there's a very cool Build-A-Figure associated with this, I almost certainly will. Sticking with X-Men, of course, we have Cyclops, and this is an X-Factor Cyclops. This is the first time we've ever had the yellow and blue in the Marvel Legends line. Pretty much a standard Cyclops, really. A lot of this is recycled from the past. Again, none of this is really sculpted in. We are seeing the butterfly wing joint here, which is very cool, though, and I do like this head sculpt, plus this blast effect looks really cool. So, you know, not my favourite costume for Cyclops. I've got quite a few Cyclops in my collection at the moment. It's not one I would desperately want, but as I said, I don't mind having an extra Cyclops since we're getting a very, very cool Build-A-Figure. And again, here we have that fantastic blast effect. That does look really cool, I've got to say. It's almost worth it for that. And interesting that we get this new head sculpt here. Actually, a smiling Cyclops. Is that the first time we've ever had Cyclops smile in an action figure form? I've got to be honest, not sure I like that. Okay, staying with the X-Men, we have another reveal here. This time it is Marrow. Very cool. I remember this character very well, coming into the comic books for a brief period of time. Obviously one of the Morlocks who eventually ended up joining the X-Men team. Very distinct, very cool costume, and there's an awful lot that's brand new here, and quite a detailed one as well, because there's a lot of this bone effect going on. So she's got these bone weapons, but also we can see the bone shin pads, and then on her back, as we'll see, there's some bones sticking out there. Very, very well done. I think a lot of this is brand new. If we look at like this rib cage effect here on the top, which is very cool. This looks to be sculpted in as well around her midriff. Of course, the knees are brand new. So there's a lot of new things going on with this particular figure. A lot of new tooling, obviously, brand new head sculpt there as well. And these weapons are all brand new. So this is very exciting. A lot of effort's gone into this figure. And I have to say, it looks like it's done a really nice job. I particularly like the gold paint they've used on these accents here. This looks fantastic. Yeah, a lot of detail in here. I think this figure looks really, really good. Whilst it's not a character I was wild about in the comic books at the time, I always found her slightly irritating, in all truth, when I was a kid. I do think she has a really cool look, and I'm actually, out of that sense of nostalgia, I'm really excited to pick this one up. And I really love this detail on the back here. I love how these bones stick out. This is very cool, and this is very different. This makes her quite unique in the X-Men universe and in the Marvel Legends line. So yeah, I'm really excited to get hold of her. And there's some of the poses getting out of this figure. This looks fantastic. Okay, and then we get the Build-A-Figure. We are so long overdue a Nemesis. This is really, really cool. I'm so pleased to finally see this. We actually got a Nemesis bath many, many years ago. Now, this was a really hard wave to pick up, at least here in the UK. So I never was able to complete them. In fact, I don't think I ever got any of the pieces of that figure. That's how tricky it was. And I always really wanted it because I thought they did such a fantastic job. Now, this is a very different look. This actually might be a more modern interpretation because I don't actually recall seeing this version myself. It's not the one from the 90s that I grew up reading about. I actually do prefer that other look, and I think that other bath is really cool. But nevertheless, I do really want the character. It's very cool, obviously, in terms of his association with Apocalypse, and I always loved that he had this really cool skull head. So for me, this is one I really want, and it is worth picking up the entire wave to build. This is a very cool figure. Obviously, all of this looks to be absolutely brand new, and there's an awful lot going on in it as well, which I think it looks absolutely fantastic. I particularly love this head sculpt though, with that skull. I think they've done a fantastic job with that. And there we go, we get to see a closer look here of Nemesis, which is great. I love that he's got this big gun arm. Again, you know, we really need to see a wash over this. Just look at all the detail that's there. And if we had a wash, that would really enhance that and draw that out, which would look fantastic. Likewise, around the tubing, around the head there. You know, why not just go the extra mile and make this really pop? Because this would be really impressive. But as it is, it's still pretty impressive because it's quite a big figure, obviously towering above your 6-inch figures. So he's probably going to come in around about 7.5 inches tall. And he looks absolutely fantastic. And it looks as if that jaw might be articulated, or either that or he has an alternate head. Well, certainly the helmet comes off. It looks like that we do have an articulated jaw, as we see on some Ghost Rider figures. And we have that flame effect. That looks really cool, doesn't it? Wow, that looks absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I really want this wave. This looks absolutely fantastic. This is going to be a fan favorite. Sure, this is going to please a lot of people. And there we can see obviously the tube come around the back there. This looks absolutely fantastic. I know I'm nitpicking, but again, if just a little bit of a wash around here, wouldn't that just finish it off? Wouldn't that just look absolutely brilliant? But anyway, it's still pretty cool. I'm very excited for this guy. Okay, and that pretty much rounds up. That's pretty much all the major reveals there. So mostly focused on Spider-Man and the X-Men. I'm sure that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what we can expect next year. These are some very fun reveals right before Christmas. Some of these are going to go up for pre-order very soon in the coming weeks. And hopefully we'll start seeing these in the first quarter of 25 if we're lucky. Maybe some will come towards the summertime. And I'm sure there's an awful lot left to come and be revealed next year. Anyway, as ever, thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any thoughts or comments about which ones you're excited to see or which ones you're hoping to be revealed next year, please do drop them in the comments. I would love to hear from you. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider giving the video a like. That kind of thing really does help the channel out, and it allows me to keep making more content. And if you're interested in seeing more content, remember to hit subscribe, as there'll be plenty more videos coming soon.